Hey, what's up, you guys? My name's Tyler Rugge. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today is a video I'm actually pretty excited to film. I am reacting to class pets. You might be wondering, why am I reacting to class pets? The reason is because so many class pets are kept improperly, and a lot of just class pets are usually left with very poor care, and a lot of them get sick and die and just don't live very long or whatever. And I just think it's a really bad message that teachers are giving to their students, because let's back up. The idea of class pets in general, to me, it's not a terrible idea. I think keeping animals like that in a classroom and taking really good care of it can be very beneficial to students, regardless of age, to kind of get them more interested in animals and just educating people about the care of animals and the way they live, providing husbandry for them. And I just think it can be a great learning experience in a classroom setting if you're doing it properly. But this can very easily backfire and turn it into a very terrible thing if people are keeping animals in their classroom and not giving those animals good care. Because if you're neglecting an animal in the classroom, then it can backfire, because then you're kind of just normalizing not taking care of pets, neglecting animals. And that's not something that you want to normalize, especially around younger kids. You obviously just don't want to promote neglecting animals in a classroom. I would say about 99% of the time, class pets are neglected, and we should change that. So I tweeted and I was like, hey, if anyone has any class pets and you want to take pictures and show me like the setup and everything, I would like to see it.
I would like to see it.
So I asked for not only good examples, but also bad examples. Obviously, I think most people are here to see the bad examples, but I wanted to see just whatever there was, so I could get a good idea of how many people's class pets are being taken care of, how many are being neglected. And not super shocking to me, most of them were bad. Let's get into it. I'm just gonna start off right here. So this very first one I got, they said, I clean at a high school. This is in a bio/environmental science room. And they sent me 2 pictures, and this is a ball python. It looks like it's pretty big, and the cage it's being kept in looks horrendous. If you know about reptiles, then you might look at this and immediately just see a bunch of things wrong with this. But if you don't have a ton of experience with reptiles, then you might look at this and not, like, it might look bad, but you might not really know what's wrong with it. You might even see it and not even think that it's like bad care if you don't know about reptiles. And that's the thing with class pets. Not a lot of people know how to actually take care of the pets in the classroom necessarily, so people will just see it and think, oh, that's normal. This is a ball python cage. I can't really tell the size of the enclosure from the picture. It actually looks pretty big. The tank itself doesn't look like it's a terrible size in comparison to the snake. However, here's some issues that I have with it. The number one issue I have is it looks like in the first picture the snake is sitting on a heat rock. And I can tell that because not only does it look like a heat rock, but there's a cord running and it's attached to the rock. So the issue with heat rocks, yes, snakes do need to get heat, and a lot of people like to use heat pads that they place under the tank. However, most experienced reptile owners will always tell you to avoid heat rocks, and that is because they are notorious for overheating. And if this overheats while the snake is laying on top of it, it can very easily burn the snake and be very, very harmful potentially. So you'd never want to use a heat rock under any circumstance. If you want to give your reptile belly heat, give it a heat pad regulated with a thermostat. You don't use a heat rock. That's just not a good idea. Number 2 is the water dish is really, really small. Most snakes, you want to provide them with a water dish that's big enough that they can actually get inside there and soak, because snakes sometimes like to soak. If they're going to go and shed, it helps them. So you want to give them a decent sized water dish. This water dish is absolutely tiny. And then there are no hides in this enclosure. I personally don't really like keeping ball pythons in glass enclosures in general. I think it can be fine if you provide a ton of foliage and hides and places to go. But if you're just gonna have a bare enclosure, which I never recommend anyways, you definitely don't want to give a ball python a glass tank because they're not going to feel secure in it. And it looks like there's the little ledge. There's 2 bricks. I'm not sure what that's providing for the ball python, but there are bricks in there. I cannot tell you anything that they did right except for the size of the enclosure looks all right, but pretty much nothing else about this is good. So the things I would change here, give it some substrate that isn't newspaper. Put some forest floor bedding in there and give it a couple hides, maybe give it some branches, some fake plants, give it a bigger water dish, throw away the heat rock, and use a regulated heat pad. It's just terrible, okay? Just to give you guys a kind of idea on what a good example is, I'll show you one of my ball python enclosures, and this isn't to like toot my own horn or anything, but I think my ball python enclosures are pretty okay if I say so myself. So this is one of my ball python enclosures. There's one hide here, another hide here. The hide back there is the warm hide. I have a water dish, and then there's also a branch that he can climb on, and there's also fake plants in here. And then he's actually down here. This is Tesla. He's a VPI lesser exanthic ball python. Next, we have a bearded dragon. So this person said, in my science class, there's a bearded dragon that is kept terribly. He is also a zoology teacher, which is really unexplainable. They started a GoFundMe along with a school-wide fundraiser to buy a proper enclosure. So I'm glad that they are at least putting in the effort to like improve its care. But let's look at its current setup and kind of go over what I don't like about it. So the first thing is, if you can just look at the bearded dragon, it looks like it's almost as long as the enclosure. Bearded dragons, at least in my opinion, the very bare minimum for most people is considered 40 gallons, but for me, I prefer keeping my bearded dragon in a 75 gallon. Just because it provides them with a lot of space. They are big lizards, like they're not small. So they need a decent sized enclosure, and this is tiny. For the substrate, it looks like they're using one of those reptile mats that is made to look like sand, and that's actually not terrible. Again, it's not preferred for me because they're kind of hard to clean. I just don't really like them, but it's not the worst thing you could keep a bearded dragon on. There isn't a lot of climbing space in there, and I can't really speak on the lighting because I don't know what they're using. However, it looks like they have a basking bulb on one side, and then they might have like a coil UVB on one side. And I personally don't really recommend using coil UVBs for bearded dragons. I don't think they provide proper UVB. You usually want to go with like a linear UVB bulb because it will provide with a bigger spectrum of UVB in their enclosure, or go with a mercury vapor bulb, which provides heat and UVB. Another issue with this is the tank is so small that even if they put the proper UVB in there, the tank isn't tall enough. Because the light would be so close to the bearded dragon, it would probably be way too much UVB for it in the first place. So you need to give the bearded dragon a proper tank in order for it to get proper UVB and be able to give it everything it needs all around. Honestly, like, that is such a sad looking enclosure for that lizard. I don't know how you could look at that, even if you don't know anything about animals and you're completely oblivious. I don't really know how you could look at that and be like, yeah, that looks okay. Like, let's keep doing that. Again, I'm going to show you guys my bearded dragon enclosure just so you can kind of reference. A good example is
So next we have another example that is a snake, but this is a corn snake this time. So this person said, there's a corn snake in my zoology classroom in like an 18-inch cage, a hide, a water dish, and a blaring heat lamp. He has awful sheds and is always trying to escape. I replied and I was like, help him. And she replied, bro, I got in a huge argument with the prof who takes care of him on the first day of class, and she literally said, I am a zoology professor. I think I know a little bit more than you about snake care. So here's a picture of the enclosure for this corn snake. This one is a 2-year-old male. So if it's a 2-year-old male, that means the corn snake is probably pretty much full grown. And full-sized corn snakes can be around 4 feet long. They're pretty long snakes, okay? I don't know what I was trying to do. Show you guys what 4 feet is? I don't know. But it's a long snake, so why are you keeping it in this tiny enclosure? This looks like it could be the equivalent of about 10 to 15 gallons. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell, again, from the pictures. Water dish, too small. Snake can't soak in it. There's a random rock. I don't know why that's there, but there's also only one hide. There should be at least 2 hides, hot spot and cool spot. This tank looks so small. I don't even know if there's room for a hot spot and a cool spot because the hot spot looks like it's almost in the center of the enclosure. She mentioned that the snake has awful sheds, and I'm assuming that's because it's kept not only in a terrible enclosure and terrible husbandry in general, but on wood shavings, which does not hold humidity well at all. It's probably very dry in there with the heat lamp. For corn snakes, again, people usually give them a regulated heat pad. So there isn't really anything right happening here, except, you know, there's one hide at least. I would give it a bigger water dish. I would give it another hide. I would give it an enclosure that's about 4 times as big as that. I would give it a heat pad. I would change the substrate to forest floor bedding. Yeah, that's really bad, especially for someone who is cocky enough to say, I'm a zoology professor, I should know more than you. And that just shows that a degree doesn't mean anything. Like, you could have a degree in zoology, environmental science, and like, you could go to veterinary school and still not know how to take care of a corn snake. So this is my corn snake's enclosure. It's hard to see everything because I have a lot of foliage in here. The warm hide is over here. And then I also have a little branch for him to climb on. There's a lot of like fake plants going along everywhere in here. The water dish is right here. And then back in this corner, I don't know if you can really see it, but back there I have another hide. So there's a lot going on in here, and this is actually a really small corn snake that's still young and is going to be getting an upgrade when he gets bigger. Everyone say hi to Sprinkles. Sprinkles is such a good noodle. So you can just kind of see how small Sprinkles is in comparison to the enclosure. So like, that's what a pretty decent corn snake enclosure looks like. And Sprinkles is just loving it. Okay, Sprinkles, you can go now. Goodbye. Let's move on to a good example. We're finally moving on to a positive one. This is good. So this is a bird, and they said, we just got her a new partner named Melody, not shown in the picture. I sadly don't have a full picture of the cage, but it's a good size. She is spoiled. So yeah, there isn't really like a good picture of the whole cage, but they said that the bird has a friend, which is good. Birds are very, very social, and if the bird's in a classroom where it's not being taken out a lot and socialized a lot, then it can actually be quite beneficial for the bird to have a friend, so that's nice. What's also really good to see is it looks like there's a foraging toy in the back. Birds need toys for stimulation and things to chew on, so that's really good to see. And what I also really love is it looks like they're using natural wood perches. It can be really bad for birds if you only give them dowel perches because they're really hard on their feet because they have to grip really tightly. And natural wood perches are just so much better, more natural for them. And just the fact that they have a nice foraging toy and natural wood perches shows me they probably did some research. They kind of know what they're doing. They're at least trying to do well.
And yeah, I can't comment on the cage size since I can't tell. But from what this person said, it looks like they're taking good care of the birds. And I really love that. That's a good example. And I think it's especially important for classrooms and people in general to spread good care for pet birds, because birds are one of the most commonly neglected animals that you could possibly get as a pet, because nobody really knows what they're doing half the time. It's just nice to see someone taking care of their pets. Like, it's just a breath of fresh air, especially a class pet. So next, an old class of mine had some goldfish that were not taken care of very well. We also had an area between halls that had a little pond in it. Don't believe ducks were intentional. There's a turtle in there. Then they provided a picture first of the goldfish. So let's talk about that for a second. That just looks disgusting. So first issue, it's in a bowl. Fish do not belong in bowls. Bowls are like, what, a gallon maybe? And goldfish need, it depends on the species, but upwards they can need from 30 gallons to 50 to 60 gallons, and even higher than that depending on the type of goldfish. But a bowl is way too small for a goldfish, and it looks like there's no filter for the water. All fish require filters, and that water looks disgusting and yellow. Goldfish are really dirty. They produce a lot of waste, so they like need a filter to filter out ammonia and clean the water for them. I see a little airline tubing going in there. It looks like the water is bubbling a little bit, which is good. That's providing oxygen for the goldfish. It's aerating the water. So at least they don't just have a bowl with nothing else in it. But on the bright side, it looks like all the animals in their school pond are thriving. There's ducks in there. They look like they're having a great time. There's a turtle, which I'm not actually mad at the turtle. I don't know where they live. I'm assuming it's somewhere where it's like nice outside and warm. And so many people mess up turtle care because they keep their turtle in like a tiny little aquarium. But the fact that they're keeping their turtle in a pond and it gets to like bask in the sunlight and swim around a pond is like really nice. So I'm sure the turtles are really happy. The ducks are cute. Overall, I love it. They just butchered the goldfish, but the ducks and the turtle are happy, so that's good, at least. Next, we have a hamster. So here's my teacher's robo-hamster, Cody. She hardly cleans the cage, and he escapes quite a bit. Oof. He's the cutest little bean ever, and I just want to take him home. And then they said, I took him home winter break and made him a bin cage. Here's him being a fluff ball, being the cutest thing ever. So I love Robo-Dwarf hamsters. They're so cute. That cage, though, way too small. Tiny, tiny cage. It looks like there's basically no toys in there at all for the hamster to chew on or play with. And the cage is tiny. So the first step to proper hamster care is don't buy a hamster cage. Buy a 40-gallon breeder tank, buy a bin. They said that they made a bin cage for the hamster when they took it home. So bin cages are actually like really good examples of proper hamster cage setups. Hamsters just need a lot more room than people usually give them, and pretty deep bedding. They like to burrow, and they like to run around and explore, and they like to have toys to play with and things to chew on. And people cram hamsters in these tiny cages, and it sucks because most people would look at this as like an okay hamster cage, but it's actually like really bad. Just get your hamster a big cage, okay? Hamster cages are so much more expensive than like proper hamster setups. That's what's crazy. People market these intricate, cool, trendy hamster cages that are expensive when you could go to Walmart and buy a big tub for your hamster to live in. And although it's not going to be as cute, your hamster's going to love it so much more and be healthy and happy. And like, do you want a cute decoration for your child's bedroom, or do you want like a happy, thriving animal? Because if you want a cute decoration, don't get a hamster. So yeah, that was me reacting to class pets. Again, there's a lot of bad examples, and I hope that people either A, stop keeping class pets, like maybe just don't do it at all, But if you're going to, do it properly. Encourage people to take care of animals and to be passionate towards them and to, you know, have like respect for animals maybe. So yeah, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I post videos every week. Check out my social media and my vlog channel. Those will be linked down in the description below. And I will see you guys in my next video.